Glorious.
Welcome to The Basement. Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to The Basement. I'm Nolo.
Jose.
And today we got a special guest. Introduce yourself.
Alright. This is what I have to deal with every time, bro. Welcome. Every time.
My name is Joel, and I'm here being interviewed. I have an eBay store, a Christian eBay store, and an Amazon store. And I'm here. I'm gonna be interviewed, I guess, about theology.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about some Bible stuff, I guess.
Yeah, the topic is, well, for me, the topic is who or what God is, not just from a logistical stance. What qualities would God need to have in order to qualify as God, and just going into those characteristics and why it's God. In order for God to be God, you would need to have these characteristics, hands down.
Okay.
So those are some of the things I wanted to touch on, and I have notes too. Ooh, look at us.
Yeah, I brought notes.
I got all my notes in my head.
You know, Donald Trump is like, get these guys out of his country. They're starting to write things down.
Hispanics taking notes. Get them
We
out.
can't have this. They know how to write. They can pass letters to each other now.
All right, so we met you in church. Right?
Yes.
In Zion Church in Brooklyn. Holla at your boy.
Holla, holla. Church he doesn't go to, but go ahead.
I don't actually go. Go to the Sunday school.
A sinner.
Yeah, so we met at Zion, and shout out to Zion. They're doing their thing, which is dope.
It's actually pretty dope.
It is. It is. So definitely shout out to Zion for doing what they're doing and bringing people and communities together. You and I had a few sit downs and talk, and for hours. So we're gonna try to slim this down to 2 hours.
I like the way you put. Oh no, it's the timer. Why did you put 2 hours and 10 minutes or something?
Yeah, because I figured, the intro, you making a silly joke and us having to laugh at it,
All right.
So, yeah.
So what do you want to dive into? What do you got notes on there?
Well, we could definitely talk about what does God have to have more sense in the Christian perspective.
Yeah. You think God could just be a regular dude and died, and that's it?
No. Well, according to Christian perspective, he needs to be both God and man.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying in general, like a universal, like, belief of God, like no specific religion. You know what I'm saying? Like God would have to be, whatever. He have to be outside of the universe. I mean, at least my thought.
Well, he definitely needs to be outside of time, space, and matter.
Yeah.
Because if he was within time, space, and matter, then he was created within it.
Yeah.
So he therefore has to be outside of it because he is eternal.
He has to originate from outside.
He not start outside because he has no beginning.
Yeah.
But he needs to be outside because a being that creates and is timeless can't be in a timeless world. He can't be created in a timeless world. He must be outside of it.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not confusing.
Even a time world, right?
We in a time world.
Yeah.
We are finite beings. He is an infinite being. And he is unchangeable. This world is unchangeable. So he definitely has to be outside of it.
I'm gonna be the devil's advocate here.
Today. Oh, you're gonna you're gonna advocate for the devil.
I'm gonna advocate for the
Que lindo. Que lindo.
Because I've had discussion a million times with a bunch of different people, and some of the things I say is like, all right, God, our perspective of God is that he's timeless, but could it also be that he runs on a different time frame than us? So for instance, if I get a dog tomorrow, I'm gonna outlive him. To him, I'm timeless. You know what I'm saying? But from my perspective, I know I'm not. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, animals don't have concept of time, so.
No, but I'm just saying, like.
Yeah.
But he's comparing the animal as us and God as the human.
Yeah.
That.
So if God can be whatever, he survives for billions of years, and that's it. Like, that's his race is billion years old. And then us, obviously, we look at him like, oh my God, he lives forever. But, you know, from his perspective, he's like, yeah, I got a few years left.
So that would suggest that God is mortal.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just, like I said, just playing a game here, a mental math game.
But then that, to me, isn't God.
But for us, he's God. He created us.
Sure, he could be that.
Yeah.
But he's not the definition or the characteristics of what I would consider the creator. Yeah. Right? You could make that argument. That's great. And I could say, well, maybe in that analogy, the alien is the next being that outlives, and is walking the human. And to the human, the alien is God.
Yeah.
Right? So and we could go layers and layers and layers and layers.
Yeah, so, and if the alien is the same time, space, and matter, then who created the alien? Who created this place?
That's where you get to who the characteristics of what would define that you stop. This is the creator, and these are the characteristics.
Otherwise, it's gonna be turtles all the way down,
and it's gonna be like gay turtles all everywhere. You know, and we don't want that. So I have up here God's laws, morals, or God's character, which is somewhat, I think, of what we'll be diving into. You. That was a fail. I don't know.
So we're just gonna focus on Christianity then?
No, I'm not looking at I'm not looking at God's characteristics, or rather, I'm not discussing God in one by one religion or one. I'm actually looking at it from a logistical atheist point of view, right? One of the things I had wrote down was that I have wrote down whether we believe. This is me in church because I like to meditate, just think outside the box. So I'm constantly writing like little things, and what I wrote was whether we believe in God or not, whether we love God or fear God. Now this is again to the atheist. God's existence can neither be confirmed nor denied. Therefore, it's logical. The mere chance that God exists is worth exploring, right? That's to the atheist.
You're talking about like an agnostic thought.
An agnostic thought to the atheist that why would you, if we agree that we cannot confirm nor deny the existence of a creator, why would you not
explore it?
Yeah.
That's why,
instead of saying, no, there's no way.
See, that's why I look at agnostic as the most honest point of view for somebody that doesn't want to believe. Like, to me, an atheist seems so... It's like you're being dishonest with yourself. Because for you to be an atheist, you have to say, I know everything. You would have to literally know everything to say there's definitely no God. And you don't know everything. So there's a possibility that there is a God. So you can't... You know what I'm saying? You can't plug yourself into that atheistic box. I guess some of the atheists would think like this. I'll hold on to my atheist position until I see proof.
Correct. And that's the human nature, right? And the tools that we're given to explore the world are uniquely designed to be so, right? And you have to ask yourself, that's a little too structured. That's a little bit too unique. That our eyebrows are designed so that when we sweat or rain falls, that it's designed so that the water would trickle and not fall into our eyes. That's a little too specific for me, for a random chance.
But dogs have eyebrows, Jose.
You just want to be a doggy.
Well, the thing here is that atheists are very big in science, and science. When you study the history of philosophy and science, when you study Kant and Hume and all these people that are great philosophers, they were trying to find answers by metaphysics, and here comes Kant, and he says, look, we can't really answer life's questions with metaphysics or things and cause and effects. We can't answer it through metaphysics because metaphysics is, you could go anywhere with it. So he said you need to use science in order to know the cause and effects of things, right? Now the problem with science is that you could only observe things that are within our realm, which is our world, our universe, and that is science, the observable universe. So anything beyond the observable universe is not science, right? It's science is only the physical. So anything that is supernatural, if there is such a thing as supernatural, cannot be science because it has to be over that. So if there's no proof, it's because they're looking at a scientific, in a scientific perspective.
That's a good place to start because so we could explain a lot so far, and it's nothing compared to what we know physically. But when that suggestion or that idea comes into conversation, I say, well, we could explain our hands, our feet, the smell, the sense, but explain to me how you create the thing that's looking through your eyeballs and analyzing the world.
Right.
How do you explain that? And if that exists, because if you're saying that science is in the physical and what we could observe, my question of how do you explain the thing that thing that's looking and analyzing the world? We see it, you have it, you're doing it right now. So if it's physical, it's scientific. We see it, but we just can't explain it right now.
You're talking about the mind.
I'm talking about whatever that is, conscience. Some may say it's just your soul, right? That thing that's piercing through your eyes and analyzing what it sees. How do you replicate that, right? Science can identify biology, chemistry, but how do you identify that? What's the name for that? We call it a spirit, a soul, a conscience. How do you replicate that, right? So then I come in, then I bring in the question of cloning, right? If you clone myself, is that thing that's piercing through that clone's eyes the same as mine? Have you replicated? We can say that we've replicated molecule by molecule myself as a clone, but were you able to replicate that thing that's piercing through the eyes? And the answer is, I believe, no.
Well, we don't know yet.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the big thing about science. So I was an atheist. I was big on evolution. I was big on the science. So when I read verses of the verse where Jesus says, "You'll do greater things," right? I mean, think about where the human race was when that verse was being told. They were riding around on horses and the donkeys, right? I mean, I tell individuals, you go back in time and show them your iPhone or your phone and take a video of them and then turn it around and show them. They would think that you stole their soul and put it in a box, right? Mm-hmm. Look at what we've done. Now, is it greater? This is the fun part. Is it greater than what Jesus did? I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying, look at what we've been able to accomplish thus far. Thoughts?
We have accomplished a lot, for sure. The thing is that science is limited because it cannot go beyond the physical. Obviously, I mentioned that before.
Yeah, but I think the argument would also be there's nothing beyond the physical. So if somebody says, "Oh, science can tell you what's physical, but not what's not," they're gonna say their argument's gonna be there's nothing that's not physical.
Well, the thing is that there are things that lead to a being that is great, right? Because if you study science, you study this is a complicated world. Through math, you could have equations, and you know that this is how this was created. You see that if Earth was moved away a few, like it was moved away more than what it is now or less, there would be no life. Or even with the sun, if the sun was moved away or created somewhere else, there would be no life.
Yeah, you talk about fine-tuning.
Fine-tuning, yeah. This is the fine-tuning argument. So considering that, considering that, we that leads to a great mind. Yeah. So we could use science that leads to something else that is beyond the science.
I'm going to press against that. So like I said, I'm going to be the devil here. All right. So with the fine-tuning argument, let's just imagine with ourselves that we have infinite possibilities of universes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And within those infinite possibilities, within them, every element, everything, molecule, whatever, there's infinite variations throughout each.
What does infinite mean?
Forever.
Forever.
Left, right, forever.
So that means there had to be an infinite past series of events.
Exactly.
And that's not logical. That's impossible.
Oh, but let's just say for the Big Bang then. From the Big Bang till now.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so let's just say that. Then we have, let's just say the Big Bang took place, right? Took place, universe existed. In the universe, everything's over. Another Big Bang takes place, and that goes on infinitum, right?
Okay.
So is there a possibility within that strain of time that our universe would be fine-tuned to this point right now?
Well, it would be like, I don't know the number exactly, but it's very.
I mean, it wouldn't matter to us because we'd only
yeah.
be born in this one, so we'd only know
Yeah,
this one.
it's very, very low. But I think what we're talking about is the Big Bang and then the Big Crunch and then again the
exactly,
Big Bang and then the Big Crunch. The question is still there. Who created the Big Bang?
Yeah.
You know,
Who's the banger?
Who's the banger?
Who's the Big Banger? Yeah, that's what they usually say. So that still falls there, and
right.
even that it doesn't only have to be the fine tuning argument. You know, even though you're saying that it would eventually lead to a fine tuning world, it still needs to explain itself of who created the Big Bang, and then you also have other arguments like the moral argument.
Yeah. Oh, so
you have the cosmological argument.
You're saying so if something exists, there has to be.
Nothing cannot come out of nothing. Ex nihilo.
Yeah.
And nothing can come out of nothing, and that's proven through science. That's proven through science, and if that's proven through science, then we should hold that view. Yeah. And the Big Bang, could be from God. Who says that it can't?
So that's why I'm not that I hold on to, but that I'm always mindful or willing to lend an ear to science and what we as humans are discovering. I believe that that if we were given enough time, not that we would achieve it, but that we would understand how God did all this, right, through the science. Because the Bible is, to me, it's clear that the Bible is the narrative of the Bible is why God is, that He loved us so much He sent His only Son, right? Yeah. But it doesn't explain how, because again, it would be like you and I showing an Egyptian an iPhone or a smartwatch, so it would be pointless. There would be no point. Now, when we're talking about what you said, that it would be impossible scientifically, I think that's where we're limiting ourselves to the characteristics of God. God would have to be able to do the impossible. We always go back and forth on the argument of Arminianism and Calvinism, right? Yeah. I paint the narrative that the Arminianist point of view is that salvation is your decision, right? You have that free will, that free choice. I paint the narrative that the Arminianist is painting the portrait, the canvas, through this timeline. This person is painting through their decisions and their views in life. What I'm saying, and the Calvinist is saying, it was already painted for me, and here it is. This is my piece in the public.
You're just living it out.
I'm just acting it out. What I'm saying is that God is both. God allows both. And in order for God to be God, that has to be true.
You're talking about Schrödinger's God?
So you're saying that God painted it out, but you still get to choose.
And God is that powerful that God can complete that. When I see things like the periodic table, and I see things that are missing, it's an unfinished picture. And as we discover more and more in science, I think that we'll finish this picture. What is this shape supposed to end up? Is it supposed to be a square?
What if it's just a middle finger? It's just when we're done, we're like, what the heck? What is this? What does this
Here's
mean?
all your efforts. I think it's a perfect circle, a perfect sphere, because when you look at science, the smallest element is a circle.
It's actually a wave, sir. It's a particle wave.
Talking about the atom? I thought it was something smaller than that.
I think that we haven't discovered what the smallest thing is, but if you look in nature, just in the sun, the stars, the moon, the general theme is a circle. So yeah, I mean,
You think God's a circle?
I don't think God's a circle.
So you think that that we still have freedom of the will, even though everything is determined.
Yeah, and that's what makes God great.
Okay, so what people will name you is either a compatibilist or they will name you a Calvinist.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, and I see that argument, right? Because I totally see that argument, but think of how could we fathom both? How is that even?
Well,
how could you break that down? How could it be both?
Well,
It could totally be both.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This topic is, always very hard to come across because there's a lot of things going on here. But Calvinism or compatibilist would say that we have freedom of the will, but the only thing you don't have freedom of is to choose God, because God is the one that puts a desire in you to choose Him. Now, I have a problem with that, because if He could do that with us, right, and to the chosen, and he could plant the desire in us to end up choosing Him, and could have He done that with Adam for him not to choose, to not choose to eat the tree of the knowledge of good and evil?
Yes, I think so. But He does that with us and we still sin.
Right, but we still sin because we ate from that fruit. So what Calvinism
but
is
the
saying,
fruit is not the sin. The knowledge of the action was the sin, right? Because it was the knowledge of good and evil. It wasn't until he bit the apple where he realized I did something wrong.
well, he rebelled.
Yeah.
Yeah, he rebelled.
So it's like when it's like for me it's like cursing. Just because you didn't say it, but you meant it with other words, it could be any word.
Yeah.
You know, I could be like, "You nice guy."
Yeah.
My intent. It's the intent, right?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not the act. It's not the fruit. It was the intent and the knowledge of the act that is the root, where it festers from. So I could call you all these nice names, but inside my heart, I'm festering with this.
And that's still evil.
and that's still evil.
sin,
Right,
yeah.
but the argument here is that he could place there's some that don't have the desire to choose God.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it is God that puts the desire in the individual.
So you consider yourself Calvinistic?
What I'm saying, this is the Calvinistic claim, that they're saying that it is, or they use scriptures that says that God is the one that puts a desire in the individual.
Yeah.
My philosophical question and theological question is, if that is the case there, where men are depraved and are sinful, at this time we are sinful, right? God plants a desire in us to choose Him. Why not? Why He couldn't do that at the time where man was not depraved and they were not sinful and they didn't eat the tree yet? He could have planted the desire for them not to choose to eat of the tree.
Well, but also, I'm sorry, I'm like I said, I'm being the devil's here. So now now God puts that in our hearts now that we've already sinned. That was a reaction to it, right? So the sin took place, and God, as a reaction, He's like, all right, now I'm going to choose. Out of your sinful group, I'm pulling my people out. But before that point, Adam had full freedom. There was no reason to choose anything. There was no choice.
Well,
There was no decision to be made.
Well, wouldn't you say He chose people before He created the heavens and the earth?
Who,
That's
me?
why.
Would I say that? Yeah.
No, I'm saying, would you say that he chose people beforehand?
Yeah.
Rather that He picked them at a time.
Yeah.
I think it's before
Well,
creation.
I mean, I think we're looking at an overall bigger picture of why He would allow that.
Why would he allow?
Why would he even allow that to even take place? Right.
Right. So so you also discussed in foreordination, predestination, the foreknowledge of God, and all others, fatalism, determinism, all these other things that we have to consider.
Yeah.
The problem of evil.
That's why we have 2 hours.
Yeah. The problem of evil. So why did God allow that to happen when he could have placed a desire in him to not choose that?
Yeah.
Right? So I did remember writing a research project. There's 3 different groups here. There's determinism, compatibilist, and libertarianist. Not the libertarianism of the political world, but more or less the theological and philosophical world.
Yeah.
So the determinists say that we don't have freedom of the will whatsoever. That everything is determined by chain of events, cause and effects, past events. And the compatibilists, I said before, is they believe that we do have freedom of the will, but the only thing that we don't have freedom to choose is our salvation. We don't get to choose God. Whereas the libertarianists would say that yes, we do have some power to choose God, right? So the determinist, the problem that I have with the determinist, because there's some Calvinists that consider themselves deterministic, is that, and this is gonna be, you need to follow my steps here because this is gonna be a little.
Okay, so before you go into there, let's take a quick break. All right, I'll be right back. Hold that thought.
Okay, so if God, right, the Christians hold the view that God is omnipotent, right, and is omnibenevolent, which what that means is God is all powerful and He's all good, right? Now, considering those 2 things that the Christians believe, and if they don't believe in that, it will be a little bit awkward to defend God, the God of Christianity. Right. Yeah. Now, considering that, since God is most powerful, he needs to also be all wise. He needs to be all knowing, omniscient, which that's what we call it, and all these things. So, considering some scriptures that we have in the Bible, we have that the verse that says that God's will is for, or God's desire is for all men to be saved. Now, if God is omnipotent, He would create that world, that possible world where everyone is saved, or maybe the most is saved. He will create such a world to complete His desire. Now, in a determined world, He could have done that, because He could have determined it so that Peter would not deny Jesus 3 times. He could determine it so that I would not deny Jesus, or anyone would deny Jesus. He could have determined so that Adam would not eat from the tree. Now, if that is the case, this world is not that world where we are not sinful. Well, we are perfect beings, but we are in a sinful world. So therefore, it can't be that this is a determined world, because we are a sinful world. I wonder if you guys are following what I'm saying.
Yeah. Here. So my only question would be this: if just because it's God's will, does He impose that will?
Well, the question also is that can He do it? Is it possible? So we need to consider what type of omnipotence we're talking about. Are we talking about a Cartesian omnipotence, or are we talking atomistic omnipotence? And the difference of the two is the Cartesian says that God is able to do all impossible things. For example, He could create something greater than Himself. He could create a rock that He cannot lift. That He could sin. This is the Cartesian omnipotence. Whereas the Thomas omnipotence will say, no, He can't do some things that are impossible or unthinkable. He can't create a rock that He can't lift, because He is omnipotent. If He was to create such a thing, then He loses the title of God.
But if the fact that He can't create the thing also...
Well, the thing is that it doesn't exist in any possible worlds. where God could create such a thing. So the Christian, it is logical to go to more to the Thomistic omnipotence than the Cartesian, because the Cartesian is is a lesser of a God than Thomas omnipotence.
Yeah, but
of
also,
God.
let's say that God can do all those things, right? He can create a rock that he cannot lift. He can sin if he wanted to.
Let's say he
But
could do that.
But he won't, because it's against his character.
Because he won't, because it's against his character.
And he's all good or whatever.
Just the possibility of that is able to happen. It's a little bit problematic, because that means that there could be something greater than him. Just the thought that there can be something greater than him, it's already a bad thought.
Yeah.
You know, he needs to be the greater being. He needs to be the thing that is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, and all of these things. And if there's a possibility of something else being that, then he can't be God. You know, and Christians, or many Christians certainly believe that. If Christians believe in the Cartesian side, then they have a big problem.
Yeah, I see.
You know, they have a big issue, because then you should agree with the atheists that this God is not so great.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, considering the Thomistic side, can he create a world where no man, would sin, where all man would choose the right all the time? And that could happen in a determined world. God could, like I said before, God could determine a world where everyone chooses the right, but without freedom of the will. That's what determinism believes, that we don't have freedom of the will.
Yeah, but would we know that living through it? Like, would we know that that's not our freedom? Would we?
Well, we know that's not our freedom if we live in a determined world.
Yeah.
Well,
so for instance,
The reason why I would say that, even if we didn't know, right? God is omnipotent, right? Right? His desire is for all men to be saved. And in a determined world, he could have done so. He could have done that all men are saved. But clearly, this world is not a world that all people chooses the right all the time. Therefore, it leads that this is not a determined world. You know, it's not a determined world.
Yeah, but my only argument would be, why would he? Maybe he could choose. I mean, obviously he can. Well, he can choose what he wants to make happen, and other things he said, I'm gonna give them that freedom.
Well, remember, I'm just talking about determinism. I'm not talking about compatibilism yet. So determinism, talking about determinism, just that, is just saying that they do not have freedom of the will. We're discussing their view.
Yeah.
Right? So by discussing their view and discussing also God, in order to fulfill his goal of he wants everyone to be saved, he could have done so in a determined world. He could have done so. Now, it is different in a compatibilist point of view where
But let me just interrupt you here, because like I said, I'm just messing with you. An example would be a mother and a child, right? The mother could force the child to say, you have to give me a hug right now. Or she can just give him the freedom to hug him whenever he wants. So now, when the child does hug the mother, what's greater? The forced hug, or the hug that was, the child that wanted to hug the mother?
Obviously not the forced one.
Right? So could the world, and the mother, at any point, she could force the child to do anything. And at some point, she probably does force the child to do some things. Chores, homework, stuff like that. But there's some things that she gives the child freedom to say, but as far as love is concerned, I want you to choose that.
Well, talking about determinism, there's no such thing as freedom. That's what they believe. They believe in the deterministic point of view, there is no freedom. Now, what you're talking about is compatibilist, which we haven't really dived in yet, or didn't go deep yet in that discussion. It's greater for them not to be forced. That's why God would create a world where we have freedom of the will. Now the question is, can he create a world that people have freedom of the will, but yet they chooses the right all the time?
Again, the analogy I use is, in my life, I'm painting. I'm given the free will to paint this canvas however I want. with this wife, with this job, with this decision. It's being written as I live this small fraction of point of time and space, but God already knows all those things and allows me to paint it. And in order for God to be God, it has to be both.
It has to be both. That needs to be painted and
He's already painted it.
So, the compatibilist or the determinist would say that. So I wrote some premises, and in the premises, it follows through that. It's talking about God's foreknowledge, and here is what I have. Premise 1: God is omniscient, and in His foreknowledge, He knows all future events beforehand. Right. Premise 2: thus if A, let's call A Peter, right? Thus if A is going to do X 3 times, was X denied Jesus 3 times, right? So I'm going to read it again. Thus if A is going to do X 3 times, God to His omniscience foreknows that A will do X 3 times. Premise 3: whatever God foreknows is determined to happen. Premise 4: since whatever God foreknows is determined to happen, A can in no way choose an option other than doing X 3 times. Right? Premise 5: but if A must do X 3 times, then A does not possess freedom of the will to do otherwise. Therefore, premise 6: A does not possess freedom of the will. Right? So this follows through. Now, the concern here is premise 3, where it says, whatever God foreknows is determined to happen. Now, the libertarianist would say that is not the case. Is whatever God foreknows of A determines God's foreknowledge of A, which is very complicated.
Yeah.
You know, what that means is that He sees all these possible worlds, right? And in this possible world, He sees A only denying Jesus 2 times. In another world, He sees A denying Jesus 3 times. Him seeing that determines His knowledge of A in this world.
The one that He denied twice.
Twice or 3 times.
So
right?
He sees 2 versions of.
I'm just giving an example,
Yeah.
Right.
hypothetically, right? So, and let's say, so Noel, right? Let's say God is creating the world. He sees that you're doing this podcast, right? That determines what is Noel doing in this world of cause and effects, right? So his foreknowledge of seeing what Noah is gonna do determines his foreknowledge of you.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to this. Right?
Mm.
Have you ever heard of? I mean, it's a little bit well known now. So Schrodinger, right? You know Schrodinger cat.
No.
So Schrodinger's cat is an example where they say, there's a cat in that box, right?
Mm.
The cat is either dead or alive. You don't know until you observe it. Once you observe it, it's official. Like it is what it is, right? Either the cat's dead or alive. When you open the box, you're gonna see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna use that an example to give you another example of an experiment that they've done with light, where they take a light and they have one slit of a wall, and they shine the light through the slit in the wall, and on the other side, they observe the particles, and the particles line up to the wall, right? Then they take the same light, they take the wall out, they put a new wall with multiple slits. So now you would imagine if the beam is shooting straight, it would be a bunch of lines. The shadows would be lines, but they're not. They spread out,
Okay.
right? So let's just imagine it's water. When you make a wave of water, if they go through the slit, after it gets through that slit, it's kind of going to spread out a little bit, the wave.
Okay.
So what they're saying is that when they observe it this way, it's a beam, but when they observe it this way, it's a particle, right?
Okay.
Depending on which way they do it. Okay, so when they're not observing it, it would make lines. When they observe it, when they actually look at it, then it forms into some sort of wave pattern.
Okay.
So the act of actually looking at it determines what's it going to be.
Okay.
Right? So is that what you're saying with God? That if He observes us doing something, his act of observing it determines what's it going to be?
I don't think that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Right? Because here, I will call it premise 3B. Right? It says free will decisions of A, which is Peter, determines God's foreknowledge of A.
So you're saying his action determines
his foreknowledge of A. It has to be, because even if God was to not foreknow it, A was still gonna do that in this cause and effect world.
Yeah.
But God does have foreknowledge, and because he has foreknowledge, he sees that in this cause and effect world, Peter's gonna deny Jesus 3 times, because he saw Peter do it. He foreknows it.
Yeah. But
whereas the other one.
But are you saying that the fact that Peter chose to do it?
Because Peter did it, God foreknows it. That's what it's saying.
Okay.
Right? Whereas the other one says whatever God foreknows is determined. You see, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
It's saying, because God foreknows it, it is bound to happen. Whereas the other one is saying he sees it happen, therefore he foreknows it.
Okay.
Right? You gotta.
So saying the first one, Peter has a free will.
The first one, he does not have the free will.
No, okay.
The second one, Peter has freedom of the will.
And God observed it.
God
so
observed
now
it beforehand, and he knows.
And the other one is.
The other one is just saying that whatever God foreknows is determined.
Okay.
He does not have freedom of the will to do otherwise. Now that is the two different views. And that's a little. It's a lot controversy with these two verses, because these two premises. I can't say verses because they're not in the Bible. But that one of them is deterministic, and the other one is not proving, but it's defending freedom of the will. So which world is the best world? And considering God being omnipotent, he needs to, whatever his plan is, he needs to kind of choose the best world for that. Because if you think about it, God is all wise, and he needs to be wiser than humans, right? So us comparing to God, if we make a decision, his decision is wiser than ours. His decision is better than our decisions or other decisions. So let's consider the Leibniz approach. Leibniz is the famous philosopher, and he came up with a theory called the best of all possible worlds. So what he's saying is that God has all these possible worlds that he can create, right? But he chose his world. Why did he choose his world? Now consider that God is omnipotent, right? And he must pick the wisest choice because he is the all-wise God, right? But he chose his world. So it probably means that he chose his world because it is the wisest decision of all other decisions that he could have made.
Yeah.
Now, if that's the case, what is his plan? Now, his plan could be that his desire is for all men to be saved, right? Which the Bible mentions that twice. He wants none to perish. Now, if that is his desire and his will, what did he want to fulfill that goal? That's the question. Now, if he wants to fulfill that goal, and it's part of his will and his desire, then wouldn't he create the wisest choice of all possible worlds to fulfill that world? In a determined world, he can. In a world with freedom of the will, I don't think he can. Once he puts freedom of the will, I think it becomes an impossible task.
Yeah.
Because there's another theory called transferal depravity, which is another thing we should consider, is that in any world that God creates where there's freedom of the will, man will at least fail once.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to say that again. In any possible worlds where God creates humans who have freedom of the will, the human will fail at least once. Meaning that there is no world with freedom of the will where man is perfect. Right? So, in a determined world, he could have done so because man don't have freedom of the will. And because this world has sin, then this can't be a determined world because God should have chosen the best world for that. And the best world would have been that all men are saved. This world clearly is not all men are saved.
Yeah.
So therefore it's not a determined world. So we do have freedom of the will. It must be so that we have freedom of the will, because there's sin in this world. Now, I hope I'm not getting too deep here.
No.
Confusing
Yeah,
people.
I think that we're more on. I think that we're more on page than my poor way of communicating what I believe, because you're just describing, for lack of better words, dimensions or probable causes. Right? I throw this ball, and it hits the river, and it sinks. In another dimension or another world, I throw the ball and it rolls down, but it never goes into the river.
Right.
In another dimension, that's what I'm saying. That God knows all dimensions or worlds as you depict in your narrative. That God is all knowing. God has predetermined, right? God is outside of time, so God has seen all possible outcomes, and that knowing that God is just and fair. That this world, that and in each those dimensions are us in different variables. Me deciding not to have this podcast, me not deciding to have a child, me, all these different worlds of me, that God, because God knows everything, saw that this particular dimension or world is the best way for his will to be done, and retract that which he let go. And what he let go, for lack of better narrative or depiction, is to me what God is. He retracted in these different worlds and dimensions, versions of himself, because the Bible says we're made in his likeness and his image. That God, the light source, retracted himself, and in that retraction saw that this path, this one particular path, dimensional world, was where he would retract that which was himself, part of himself. So the Jews believe that there is no heaven or hell, rather that your obedience to the Torah, the Tanakh Torah, right? That your obedience is what gets you closer to the light source, right? How interesting that narrative is to me in this depiction, because I don't imagine hell being actual fire, but because of the time and place, fire was the best way to describe the agonizing pain. What do we know about fire? What do we know when you get burned? What your epidermis layer, your skin layer, is where all the neurons that transmit the sense of pain. When you're burning, right? After that epidermis layer and the neurons are done, you're just cooking. You're like an oven, just your organs just shut down. You don't feel the pain anymore because your neurons are burned off. When the Bible depicts as hell being agonizing, burning sensation, never ending, I compare that as that disobedient part of that disobedient person that chose to sin, that chose not to repent, that is forever away from the source, alone with its own thoughts. I've been lonely for a long time, and I could tell you that it is the greatest pain one can go through. I have a son, and I was away from my son for 3.5 years. And in that analogy, I could see how the Jewish perspective of heaven and hell, and my love for science and trying to understand where I am, who I am, what I am, that to me is hell. That you're away from the source, away and you're left to your own self. You wanted to be your own God? Well, here you go. Here you are, all the way over there. And you start thinking to yourself, your thoughts don't matter. You're alone for eternity. You're alone so much that your thoughts, in your own thoughts, you start creating your own world, knowing that you're still alone. That to me is the agonizing, never-ending pain, the burning of hell.
I think also that perspective of the Jewish faith, whatever the idea of heaven and hell, whatever, I think a lot of Christians may not agree with me, but that's the Christian perspective of heaven and hell.
Correct.
Because the wonder we imagine with heaven and the sky and the fire, whatever, that's some Catholic pictures that
analogy,
they drew.
Yes.
And people started to believe it. But biblically, heaven is newness with God. Hell is separation from God.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly
right. Well, heaven it's not a place where we become one with God. It's
just
right.
nearness. Yeah.
So one thing that
Wait. You said heaven is not a place where what?
well, we become one with God. I don't think that's what.
Yeah, we don't merge with him.
Because we need to be careful that we don't go into the monist or pantheist perspective.
Go ahead,
Which
elaborate.
is right. So, we are created by God, right? But I don't think I might have to disagree. I don't think we will go back to a source.
Okay.
Because it can lead to for example, like what's his name, Spinoza is a Jewish, or they call him a Jewish heretic actually.
Okay.
He's a pantheist, and he will say that everything that is created is the source is God, and everything comes back to him. Now, once you say the source comes back to him, it's going the pantheistic route.
So,
because
okay.
it's becoming one with him. Now,
let's break that down a little bit more, because I'm not saying that we become the source, but because of lack of better the tools of my knowledge, the tools I have to describe what I'm saying is limited, right? So I'm not saying that we become part of the source, right? I'm saying that, and I'll use this analogy. I go to heaven and my son doesn't. How is that heaven and everlasting joy? The only way is that I, in heaven or close to the source, can understand the justness of God. That validates that I'm not sad about it because it's just. The only way you could understand that is by somewhat or being explained somehow from the source why this is just, why this is this. So in some ways, I'm not saying that it's a physical merger or it's a joining, but there has to be some kind of understanding when you're with the source that this is why you were obedient. This is why you don't see your son, you don't see your daughter, you don't see your cousin, you don't see your mother, right? How could it be so? So for lack of better merging or the closer to the more obedient we are, the closer to the source, and the closer we are to the understanding of the mind of God.
okay.
But also, I think that's also Christian, like theology. I think that's, that's gonna happen already.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, as a Christian, your whatever, like your mom's not gonna be in heaven or your dad or whatever.
Correct.
Like already that's gonna be it. And if you still choose the Christian
Model
of thinking, then you've already accepted that at this point. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I tell everybody, heaven is a single file line, one way.
That's very good.
You're not going to go in as a group.
That's
You're not going to
very
hold
good.
hands and walk in. It's a one door, one step, one person at a time goes in. One person at a time doesn't get in. You're not going to go in with your group.
Well, I personally don't have. There's not a lot of details in scripture describing what it's gonna be like. We just know that
they're going to be fat babies with wings with arrows.
Right, imagine that.
Naked fat babies.
We all cupids. But yeah, I can't really go into detail there because I don't know. I don't think anyone would know. We could suggest things, but I don't think anyone would know.
It's funny because one of the kids in Sunday school, I was like, nobody really knows what's heaven like because nobody's ever been there and came back. She was like, well, I saw a video on YouTube where somebody went to heaven and they told the story. I was like, yeah, there's videos on YouTube of people flying in the sky. And then halfway through the lesson, she walked up to me with the phone. Look, he went to heaven and came back.
I'm showing you, this is real.
But one thing I could say for certain is if I go to heaven and Jesus is not there, then I would say I'm in hell. And if I'm in hell and I see that Jesus is there, I would say I'm in heaven. That's C.S. Lewis, I believe, said that. And what that means is that a lot of Christians are so focused on I want to go to heaven, but they want to go to heaven because it's a nice place.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go to hell because hell is a scary place. And I don't think Christians should focus on that.
But to me, that's the Catholic, the history of Christianity. That the Catholicism, that the reason why Martin Luther separated was because of that mentality.
Well,
they were adding extra things to it that doesn't belong. Heaven is not going to be. Heaven is not. We're not. Heaven is just nearness with God. It has nothing to do with you being happy or whatever.
Right.
The fact that you're close to him is going to be an exhilarating experience. You know what I'm saying?
Or more enlightening as far as understanding, right? If I'm this close to you, I could define you from this. But if I'm 2 miles away from you, I could barely make out what you are.
We ain't making out 2 miles away, boy.
Boy, this guy.
but yeah, we need to consider that. No, I want to go to heaven because Jesus is there.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to be separated from him because he is the one that gives me my identity. He's the one that loves me. And why would I go in a place that he's not there? You know, and that's a sad place. You know, yes. I can't imagine me being without God, and because that's a sad life. Yeah. I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to think about it. Yeah. But yeah, but this is very different with the discussion we were talking about before about freedom of the will, and all these things. So I don't know if you guys still want to continue that.
But yeah, we can. Yeah, we definitely can. But it definitely, I mean, it's part of it, right? It's part of it. I don't think that the listener, you guys. Hopefully there's enlightenment, there's to the very least in my hopes of this particular episode that you, the listener out there, ask more questions, that to the very least that your hunger to understand who and what you are is strong. And I would suggest that you go through Christianity and to the very least build the hunger to want to know who you are. To the atheist, you're taking a high risk on something that at the end of the day we could sit here for days, cannot be denied. So it's worth exploring. And whatever that thing that's festering you and preventing you, that probably is the thing that is limiting you to understanding who you are more. That at the end of the day is what I want my listener to get from this episode, and it's just exciting. I think that when I was younger, learning was big, but I got to a selfish point that I just wanted to be me and do me. And as you mature, you start realizing, wait, who am I? What am I? And it isn't through maturity that for some you don't build the hunger. For those who don't, for the atheist that says you know it all, you really take your time, listen to what's being said, and
he's observing his free will.
Deep, look deeper. Exactly. I'm observing my free will.
Yeah. But Christians are like, you should consider studying all these views.
Do you think God is irresistible?
What do you mean irresistible? Oh, like you
His grace.
His grace.
His offer.
Oh, you're going into the Augustine route. That.
Well, this kind of goes with what we're talking about.
That has to do with the desire part. Does he put a desire in us?
I think so.
And now I'm gonna use this argument again. Now we saw already that in a determined world, God would have chosen a world where everyone would be saved, because that is the best world. That is the wisest world to fulfill His will. What's His will? For men to be saved. Now, my problem here is that if He places a desire in the individual, and no one can choose to choose God, and He's the only one that could put a desire in the individual, that wouldn't it be the best world where He would put a desire in everyone to choose God? That would be the best. I would think that would be the most omnipotent thing to do.
But I don't think he's suggesting that everyone.
No. Okay, so this is the way I see it.
Well, Augustine. Actually, Calvin. Augustine too.
Shout out to my boy Calvin.
Actually,
John,
Augustine
I see
too.
you.
He interprets the verse as only for the chosen.
Yeah.
And that's not mentioned. That's not mentioned anywhere.
So
it's just suggested.
At the position that he foresees Peter, right, doing the
denying him
3 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say in that instance instead Peter chose Jesus, right? Okay. Just as a point of view. Now that Peter could be anybody. Mm-hmm. Can God call that person chosen without actually choosing him? Can He just call him that? Those are my chosen.
Can people. He could call him chosen, yeah. You're holding the Calvinistic view. Yeah.
I just think it's a matter of perspective as well. I think it's just us viewing it as we're the chosen few.
Well, the thing is that when you consider that verse, that He desires all men to be saved, it says all men.
So
You
women
know,
are
all
not.
human.
You're saying that women.
All human. When
Happy
you
to the
read
dogs.
part of the
wait,
Happy to the
patriarchy.
dogs.
when you read man in the Bible, it means humankind. So, ladies, please don't get offended. Yeah, it means the two.
The thing is that he only wants this to be a male podcast for some reason, YouTube thing, and I've been trying to tell him that. Yeah.
But what I was saying, he wants all men, or considering humankind, all humankind. It's plural. It doesn't mean all chosen. Where is he getting the chosen part from?
Yeah, but
You know?
this is my pushback is just because he desires them to be saved doesn't mean he's going to impose that on them.
Right. So it goes to the question: can he create a world? It's a transworld depravity argument. Can he create a world where people have freedom of the will and choose the right of the time? No, he can't. Every possible world that he creates where there's freedom of the will, the human would choose wrong at least once. Now the same question is still there. Can he put a desire on everyone? He puts it on Peter. He puts it on me. He puts it on you guys. Why he can't put it on others? That is the ultimate question.
But I think this is why I hold on to the Calvinist perspective when I say he doesn't impose it on them, but now it's difficult to explain because it's okay. So let me start from the beginning, right? This is my point of view. You tell me what you think or whatever. So the way salvation comes is through the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, right? The Holy Spirit comes and it puts something in you, gives you a desire to want to be saved, right? Saying the words of the Lord's Prayer or whatever you want to call it, sinner's prayer, whatever, that doesn't mean nothing to me, right? What comes into it is your heart, right? Do I live for this? Do I want this? Is this what I believe in, right? Do I believe that Jesus is actually Lord? Jesus is the doorway into which we walk to get into heaven, right? The Holy Spirit is the one that leads us there, right? So the way I see it is God is the one God is the Holy Spirit. So God is the one that initiates the salvation process.
Right. I know that. But why he doesn't initiate on everyone?
Yeah.
That is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is why I hold on to the Calvinist perspective, because he doesn't choose everyone. He doesn't do it to everyone. He chooses a select few.
Right. So why? It's. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we will ever know until we get to heaven. Because by all means, all views could be wrong, and we could find out in heaven. Crap! We're all wrong.
It'd be funny. We go to heaven and be like, "But God, why?" He's like, "Remember that one time you were in the living room and you were like, yo, if you're real, move that can." Just that thought is like, yeah, I chose you. I was like, you know what? He's legit. He's in.
He's in. You make it.
And it's like, that's it. That
was it.
That was what you chose. That's your base. He's like, yeah.
All those books I read.
Everybody gets a random decision. Whatever they want to, whatever I feel like, I'll let them in.
Yeah. For me, the problem is that if he could do it for Peter, he could also do it for B.
Yeah.
For everyone else, and it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible.
The only thing to me,
it's possible in a libertarian perspective. It's not possible. I don't think in the deterministic perspective, and I don't think it's possible in a compatibilist perspective, because if his desire is for man to be saved, he would choose the best possible world for that to be fulfilled. It cannot be fulfilled in a world where there's freedom of the will. And in a comparative perspective, he could have placed a desire on everyone to choose God, but clearly not everyone is choosing God.
Yeah. But then also,
but God could have chosen.
When he says all men, does he mean every single man, or does all mean his
that's
chosen?
That's how I read it. It's all.
Yeah, but there's points in the Bible.
Unless you're saying that other people are animals or not humans.
No, I'm just saying there's points in the Bible where God says all, but clearly it doesn't mean all, right?
Okay.
So for instance, when he says that.
Well, he says, I'm sorry. I when he talks to when Peter is saying, "I won't deny you," and Jesus said, "Oh, before the rooster crows, you're gonna deny me 3 times." And Satan asked me to take you. Something like destroy you. I'm paraphrasing. Yeah. I'm not describing it right. And he said, "Don't worry, I have prayed for you." The "you" there is plural, talking about all the disciples. I prayed for you.
Y'all is the proper.
Y'all. I prayed for y'all. Yeah, I prayed for y'all. So that in that sense is plural. Now, and so for example, the other one is He called many, but
True.
many are called, but
Few
few
are
are chosen. In that sense, it's when you study that, it's more. It's not everyone.
Yeah. It's just a general.
It's a general because when they were making speeches to people or talking to people, they're calling everyone, right? But while they're calling everyone, it could also mean that only a few.
Yeah.
Are
Within this group that can hear.
Yeah, that are here. Only a few.
And I think there's a verse in the Bible that says something like salvation comes through hearing the word.
Salvation comes from hearing the word of God, or something like that.
Right. So
maybe you could look up the verse.
Not to me that looks like God is making moves through this world, but His moves come through people. Like He literally uses people to do that. Right. So He's like, I'm gonna put it in your heart a desire to speak to this crowd right now. Mm-hmm. You're gonna speak to those crowds. Everybody's gonna hear you. Everybody's gonna hear the sound, right? Mm-hmm. Within that voice that's carrying out there, my spirit is gonna go within that voice, and within that group, I'm gonna select my few that I predestined.
Oh yeah, I will be predestined.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So my group that I predestined, those people, I'm gonna put the spirit and the desire in them, and they're gonna proceed forward, and they're gonna accept my son, or accept me. Right. So that's the way I kind of view it. Mm-hmm. So now, also, those people, when they hear it, they're still making a decision, right? But the Spirit of God is so irresistible, right? Just like, mm-hmm. 50 Cent has a verse where he goes, "I love you like a fat kid loves cake," right? Because fat kids love cake. It's irresistible to them. You know what I'm saying? They could deny the cake, but it's just delicious. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And that's the way I see it, that it's just so irresistible to them, right? Because I spoke to plenty of Christians before, and they say the same. A lot of them say the same thing. I can never see myself not being a Christian.
Right.
Because it's almost unimaginable. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So is that, like I said, I think this is why I hold on to a Calvinistic perspective, because of that. Okay. But I could be wrong. I don't know. Yeah.
So faith comes from hearing, and hearing from the word of God. And there's other verses that says that we are justified by faith. So that's also in connection to that. But let me put those into premises. What you're saying is saying, God grace is irresistible, right? That's premise 1, right? Let's say premise 2 is God's grace is offered to me.
Yeah.
Therefore, I can't resist it. Right?
Yeah.
It follows. Right? I'm saying once again, premise 1, God's grace is irresistible. Premise 2, God's grace is offered to me.
Therefore,
I couldn't resist it.
I couldn't resist it.
If that is the case, why doesn't that happen
to everyone?
No, but okay, so that's I think that's where I come into where just because you heard the message, that's not that it's an offer to all, right? But that's what's meant by the grace as offered to you. I don't think it's that. I think what the grace is the Holy Spirit saying, "Hey," well, you know what I'm saying? I think that's
it's an offer.
The offer.
Right, but why? Still, the question is why it doesn't. Offer.
So it's for instance, if I'm making a business deal with you and I'm like, "Y'all offer $1 million for that," you're hearing, you hear it, but the offer's not for you. The offer's for him, even though you hear it.
Yeah,
but I'm human too.
Right, but he's saying that remember that your offer to me should be irresistible, and if your offer to go into business is irresistible to everyone you make it to.
Yeah, everyone to make it to. Yeah.
Then how is it that it's irresistible for me? But he could resist it.
No, what I'm saying is this. Let's say I offer you $1 million for that computer right now, right? You be an idiot not to give that up. You'd be like, "Hey, I'll buy 1,000 of them," you know?
Right.
He's here and he hears the offer. But the offer is not for him. The offer is for you. Now, to you, it's irresistible. You're not going to give that up. He can hear it, but it's not for him.
So what he's saying is that you're
right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know what he's saying. But once that finger is pointed to me, then I could also not resist it. I could also take the offer.
Yeah.
Why not me?
But what he's saying is that
that's the unanswered question.
Right, no.
Why does he choose?
I know what he's saying. I know he's saying
But
that,
does everyone
that
get
it's
the
not
offer?
an offer? Right? The thing is that why not everyone gets the offer? Why not everyone gets this offer?
I think that's the one. That's where the end is. That's as far as I can get.
Yeah, it will fulfill the will and the desire of his. Everyone would end up choosing God.
Yeah,
but doesn't the Bible say that that all will hear the word?
Yeah, but it doesn't say that they will. You could look it up.
So when he says all, in my perspective, I believe that all are the chosen. Those are the all he's talking about.
Right.
Just like when he says...
That's a suggested interpretation. It's not an actual interpretation.
No, that's what I'm saying.
So, for example, Martin Luther... I'm just going to connect this real quick, which is pretty funny. And it was actually mentioned last sermon by Justin and Zion. But Martin Luther, right?
Wait, hold on real quick. Martin Luther, the reformist.
Reformers,
Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah. Good clarification.
Actually, Martin Luther King Jr. was named after Martin Luther.
Right.
Okay.
He was.
I want for the audience.
For the audience.
He was inspired by Martin Luther, and therefore he changed his name. But Martin Luther, he got enlightened, thankfully, and he saw Romans, and Romans really captivated his heart, and he saw that we're justified by faith. But the downside to that is that he hated James. And why did he hate James? Is because in James it said we are not justified by faith alone, but to be justified by works. Yeah. Now, because of that, he wanted to disregard James, right? And I'm trying to see how I'm connecting this. But in this, so he was trying to adjust his theological idea, right? But in the same case with, I think when you say I think this means only for the chosen, it's because Augustine or Calvin is trying to tweak their theological idea and just put it, it's only for the chosen. Yeah. You know, it's not for all.
But I think when they're tweaking their theological idea, I think what they're doing is looking at the world and saying this is the way the world is, and this is what the Bible says about the world. So if the world is this way and the Bible says the world, whatever, the God says something about the world this way, that's the way he must mean this because that's the way the world is.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because if God is omnipotent, once again, that he would fulfill his desire. He will fulfill his desire, right? He fulfill his will. Yeah. And he could do so by putting the desire on everyone. But he didn't. This world doesn't have
But
that.
in my perspective,
so it has to be something else. Huh?
My perspective, he does do that.
With who?
So when he says...
With the chosen.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But the thing is that's two sides. It's either the chosen or is it for all men. Now, obviously, if it's only for the chosen, that leads to a whole different interpretation of everything else. But if it is not, if it's actually what it says, it's all for all humankind, then I can't be a Calvinist.
So
what I'm saying is if it's not that, then that leads to a litany of issues that we have to interpret the Bible, right? But if he does mean the chosen, then his word is the word. And
if he does mean the chosen, then I have to accept Calvinism. Yeah.
Okay, so congratulations. Welcome to the
club.
Got him. We got him, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
You're at the basement.
Sat down. Then okay, guys. But if it's not, then that means that Calvinism has a huge problem because then that means that he could have done so and he didn't. No, therefore he's not up to. But
what I'm saying is the fact that he doesn't necessarily mean that Calvinism is wrong because then he would choose everybody. What I'm saying, the fact that he doesn't. He didn't. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. He doesn't. The fact that he doesn't, but there are those select few that do. Those are the ones he must be talking about because we have to interpret the Bible, to the real world, right?
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
he must mean these people because there's no way he means the world, right?
So if it's
in the verse here, to me, I mean, you tell me what it does. He mean specific people? He's just being everyone.
I don't think this means that they're gonna accept it.
Hold on, let me read it. Let me read it for everybody. First of all, you're using the wrong interpretation. It's ESV you need to use.
No.
All right.
No. So you have the mouse, bro. You have the mouse.
They usually say NIV, non-inspired version. No, I like the NIV.
So we're talking about Matthew 24:14, and it says, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached to the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come.
In the English Standard Version, and the gospel, and this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come.
But I think this is just saying, hey, look, you want the end of the world to come? Do this.
Yeah.
Right? Then the end of the world is going to come.
But also the hermeneutics of this, or reading the verses before and after, they ask him the question, when will the end of times come?
Yeah.
Right,
he gives it this discussion, there's going to be these things going on, and eventually ended up with this verse that the end will come when the all the nations will hear the word. But that's not implying that they all will accept him. Yeah.
Correct.
So
or the other verse that every knee will bow down. And, it's not really saying that they're...
Jesus, what the heck is... So I just to keep it on the same topic. There is a point in the Bible where Jesus is giving a parable, right?
Okay.
He gives a parable, blah, blah, blah. And then his people, his homies, the people he's walking with, they say, and then he tells them, this is what this means, this is what this means, this is what this, within that parable. Mm-hmm. They're like, why didn't you tell them? He's like, well, if I told them, they would believe. So what do you think about that?
Well, there's also a verse saying, so that's a good one, because I will also introduce another type of theology.
There we go.
A doctrine. And there's a verse saying, I'm paraphrasing here, so don't crucify me.
That's what this podcast is all about, paraphrasing.
Yeah. He said, if Sodom and Gomorrah was to see Jesus' works, they would have still been here today.
Yeah.
So the modalism is another, is a branch of Arminianism, and it's like Calvinism in some ways. But they go with something called counterfactual argument.
Hold on, wait. You said modalism.
Molinism. It's by Molina.
Molinism, not modalism.
Modalism.
Okay. I just want to, because
it's a heresy.
It's difficult to understand the podcast.
That shouldn't be. Modalism, which I'm not. That's not what I'm presenting. Is saying that the Holy Spirit. I mean that God has three different images or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
So he's almost like he's wearing a mask.
Yeah. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying Molinism.
And I just want to say that T.D. Jakes believe this, and this is called the heresy. So stop listening to T.D. Jakes for your spiritual needs. It's okay to listen to him for a little fun, but he's not your pastor.
Yeah. So what I'm providing is Molinism with an L by Molina.
Look up Molinism there.
Yeah, William Lane Craig is a huge follower, boy. And I believe Alvin Plantinga as well. So and this one they provide something called counterfactual arguments, and in counterfactual arguments,
Molina.
Yeah, Molina.
Why is it so zoomed in?
The counterfactual argument, what it provides is that in the Bible, it mentions things that could have happened.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
Yeah.
So, for example, where you mentioned that if he was to talk to these people, they would have believed, that's a counterfactual argument. It could have happened, and he could have created a world where that could have happened.
Yeah.
Right? Or, for example, in the Old Testament where he says, if you don't repent, this is going to happen. That's a counterfactual argument, because he's saying the truth. That would happen.
Yeah.
You can't just reject that truth that he's saying. So, taking this factual argument approach, God, in His foreknowledge, seeing all these possible worlds, could see when this individual when this individual would choose God, right? And He would put that circumstance for the individual to choose God. And then He could also see that there might be some individuals that would never choose God.
Yeah.
That would just,
but also
not choose Him at all.
Sodom and Gomorrah was so bad that even one person could have saved that city.
Yeah. Not even Lot was righteous.
That's what I'm saying.
Not even Lot was righteous. But it goes to tell you that none. He probably was saying that none is righteous at all. But yeah, keep going.
I don't know. I have no point.
You
throw that in there.
As soon as you do
one person could have saved Sodom and Gomorrah. If he was a Calvinist, it would have worked.
But
he could have saved one Calvinist. Could have saved that city.
One Calvinist.
But when it comes to God's providence and His wisdom, he could place people in certain times and certain ages and put them in certain places.
That's what Martin Luther King Jr. said. You ever heard that?
Judy?
Martin Luther King Jr., yeah. He said
I thought it was Judy. I'm like, it was Judy.
no, Judy.
Judge Judy?
Martin Luther King Jr. in his last public speech,
Mm-hmm.
he said he was saying that God took him across time, and he showed him the Jews being released from Egypt, and then he said, "Do you want to go there?" And Martin Luther said, "No, I want to keep going." And he basically goes through time, right? And then at the end, he talks about the civil rights movement,
Mm-hmm.
and then God asked him, "Do you want to go there?" He goes, "Yeah, I want to go there." And then he said, "That's where God sent me." And then he gave an example that he's Moses on the mountaintop when they get to the promised land.
I saw it.
And that God told Moses, that's the promised land, and you're not going to make it there. They are, but you're not. And Martin Luther King says that at the end, his last speech, it's like 2 days before he dies. He goes, we're at the cusp of getting to the promised land. I'm not going to get there, but you are. And then 2 days later, he gets killed.
What speech is this?
I think it's
I've never heard
Over
of
the
this.
Mountaintop. I think the name of it, they call the speech, Over the Mountaintop.
Yeah, never heard of this. It's interesting.
It was funny because I view Martin Luther King Jr. as modern day prophet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that, I mean,
Well,
I see a lot of people,
You believe in you obviously believe in that still.
prophecy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Of course.
Now, let's say.
Okay. Here we go.
Yeah, let's say that what he said is true.
Yeah.
Or lie. Let's just say hypothetically, even if it's a lie, God could do that. Not that he asks people, you wanna go here?
Oh yeah.
You wanna go here, man? And you go
But
here.
in a sense, he does that every day. Every time
what he
with
could
everyone.
do is that he knows that you're gonna do this, and because you're gonna do this here, this is gonna happen,
Well,
and therefore he puts you there.
he was probably Calvinist.
But without,
God chose me to be here. So I'm saying.
but it's not. I don't think he's asking the individual. If you
No,
wanna
of
be
course
there.
not.
Right.
No, but it's almost like your parents offering you a cabbage or a candy bar.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you have the choice.
But you don't have the choice to be born in the
India
womb
or
womb
Korea.
of some poor woman in Africa starving.
But we don't know that right now.
Exactly.
But what if at the end of days,
We
when we get close to God, he's like, "Oh, so how was it?" And you're like, and then all of a sudden you start thinking back, you're like,
But
"I did ask you to put me as a Puerto Rican in New York." I remember.
Right, but that's
It's
something
a sofrito.
we have. That's just pure metaphysics. That's just like no.
Yeah, we're just
we
mental
like
beings.
there's no
We're
way.
just
I have no knowledge of that. That's absolute zero. But considering that, yeah, God could put you in this place because He knows you would do A, and then you would do B, and by
would
doing
trickle down.
and by doing B, you would do C.
So God could do that.
Yeah, God could do that, and that also goes with 3B, which 3B is free will decisions of A determine God's knowledge of A. By Him doing that, He could choose the world where you do that, or choose the other world that you do this. But He chose His world that you do that. I'm not trying to confuse you.
No,
But what I'm saying is that you still had the choice in how
You still have
difficult
a
that may
freedom.
be to understand that you still had the choice.
Yeah, you still have the choice because He's going by your decision.
But could the choice be an illusion?
Could the
The
choice?
mic could go a little bit of mic. I know you like the mic.
Could your free will just be an illusion?
He
Can
moved
it-
3 centimeters from the mic. No change.
Can it be an illusion? I don't think so because He's still going by your decision making. And
Yeah, but what if those
He's
are
going
His
by?
decisions?
Remember, He needs to be over you. His wisdom has to be over you. His providence has to be over you, and His things needs to be fulfilled because He is God.
No, but I'm saying, like, what if your decisions are actually His decisions, and you perceive them as your own decisions, but they're not?
No, because that would be deterministic. That would be foreordination, and foreordination could also provide. Because if that's the case, then He created evil.
So
I've had
Because then Adam did evil, and if God is the one that did, then that's problematic.
Yeah, but is
God
evil something to be created, or is evil just an action?
It could be an action
or a byproduct.
It is a
Yeah,
byproduct.
A byproduct.
When people say God created evil, I'm like, that doesn't have to necessarily create this.
yeah, I would
All
say
it
it's
is
a
is
byproduct.
He's
just
the causation of it. If we're holding that view.
yeah.
And
But the
that's
causation
problem.
would just be the freedom then.
If freedom is an illusion, he's the one that's playing the strings, and he's the cause of evil, and
so you're saying, that makes sense, because then you would be, Adam ate the apple, therefore God is the one that
stringing it
it's
along.
not an apple.
It was
Hey, we don't know.
an eggplant, right? That's what it was.
An eggplant. Jesus, dude.
That's what the kids eat nowadays.
Come on.
Isn't that what the kids eat nowadays? Eggplants? Because I always see the text messages all the time. I don't know.
I thought it was a vegetable.
Please. I'm going to put that part out. We'll cut it and edit it.
It was a vegetable. But then he played the strings, and that's problematic. God is not evil. He's not. He's a good God. So yeah. I think
what makes you say that?
Yeah, what makes you say that? I was about to go into that because to me, God is just a just God.
The Bible mentions that none are good but God. So that's all I have to say.
But why? Why would that be so? How could that be so?
Because he's holy. And,
you got to see what you're saying.
And he's the standard of goodness. So I remember, what was it? What's it, Socrates? He says, are things good because God saw it as good, or God, or this is good because he chose it to be good. And the third argument is that no, it's good because he is good.
So I've been given an infinite amount of choices, different possibilities, different worlds, different parallels, infinite amount. I'm not aware of it because God said this is the one that fits his narrative. Yeah, his will or whatever his will is. It could be that he has another will that we don't know of. And in another dimension, you could have been the president, a murderer.
I could have been Obama.
You could have been a bum.
A Muslim.
I could have been a Muslim.
But this was the best way to fulfill the Creator's will.
What if you got such freedom and you go to heaven, you're like, man, God, it'd been great if I could have flied in the air, And then God's like, well, why didn't you fly? He goes, what do you mean? He goes, did you try to fly? And you're like, no, it's impossible. He's like, who told you that? Did I tell you that was impossible? Did you try?
Peter walked on water.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
But I think it's logic. It's more logical to say that we have freedom of the will and we have the option to choose them. Yeah.
And yet his will's done.
Jonah is a good example. That Molinism also provides an example. He chose the bad route, but yet he still ended up in Nineveh.
Yeah.
So
if he chose the right route, he would still end up in Nineveh. But you still see the freedom of the will of Jonah.
So.
But God gave us the free will, but at the end of the day, he's gonna get his.
The end of the day, his goal will be met.
You're just playing out that role.
It has to be because he's all wise.
Yeah,
that's
his
why
goal
I said
has to be met.
So let me ask you: Does that work with salvation?
It has to be both in a sense of his decision. His decision is already determined, but we have freedom of will. When it comes to salvation, I don't think that he chooses. I think.
When it comes to salvation?
When it comes to salvation, I think we have freedom of the will to choose him or not. Does he know who's gonna be chosen?
No, but just like Jonah going to Nineveh, let's say we turn away from the salvation, are we gonna wind up there because that's God's will?
Remember his desire is all men to be saved once again, right? And considering that argument, he would have chosen that world, right? Now, let's say Nineveh is salvation. And in a perfect world, everyone will be in Nineveh.
Yeah. Right? But we don't live in a perfect world.
So it has to be that some people choose them and some people don't.
And it's not perfect because we had the choice.
And we chose Donald Trump.
My boss was like, you talked a lot about Donald Trump. But like, I haven't found an episode. I don't think there is an episode we won't mention that crazy man's name.
But in monism, you see God's providence and his wisdom, and you see the freedom of the will of man. Arminianism, on the other hand, gives a lot of power gives a lot of freedom of the will
to man.
And I prefer more Calvinism or monalism than Arminianism. Myself.
I think I view Arminianism as a theology that holds on to the Catholicism that it came from.
It could be possible.
Because I don't see that God was. I mean, but then again, that's my point of view, my perspective from my theology, I guess. That I don't see Jesus or Paul teaching a pure Arminian theology. There's a lot of God's will be done, and you know what I'm saying. You have a choice, but God's will be done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
So that's why later on in the future we see more Arminian theology come into play.
Yeah.
And that's to me that's just an effect of the Catholic faith.
Yeah.
That somehow we held on to it when we branched off.
Exactly.
Or some groups held on to it.
Well, yeah, we did branch off. Molino branched off with Calvinism. Arminians had an argument with Calvinism. That's how the Calvinism came out with the 5 points tulip argument. And the Arminians lost terribly.
But didn't the Arminians come up with their 5 points first, and then
they came out with the 5 points first?
And then Calvin was like,
yo.
Calvin was like, hold my Bible, I'll be right back.
I'll be right there.
Yeah. But yeah, these topics are very interesting, and like I said once again, by all means, we could all be wrong.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
That's the funny part.
It'd be funny we get to heaven and they're all Mormons. We're like, what is going on here?
Oh, in that sense, no.
What is going on?
Oh, no.
I remember that episode of South Park. Everyone's in hell. I was like, who was right? It was like
Mormons.
Yo, so this was exactly what I was anticipating it to be. I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about more in depth of what you're doing with your books and your product that you have coming out. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I have thankfully I have an eBay and Amazon mentioned, and I believe I did mention that in the introduction. And what I sell is just Christian books. It could be Tony Evans or Sproul, theology, history, church history, and many others, apologetics, and many others that I have. So I also have an Amazon, which holds the same thing. I have DVDs, CDs, and books all together.
Are any of them bootleg?
No. Imagine.
DVD,
No. They're
DVD, CD.
They're original. They're from the manufacturer. But also, I'm gonna come up with a new product. And I would like for you guys to look at it. And I'm very excited about it. It's I'm putting my own. I have my own label on it. It's called. The domain name is Philosopher's Cove, and the product is gonna be called Philosopher's Beard. And what it is gonna be a beard kit with how do you call it, beard oil, beard balm. It's gonna have a comb and all these things. It's nice, you know. So ladies, buy for your boyfriend or your husband.
Don't get the tie and the socks.
Yeah, you don't want him to shave because men have beards.
and all the best theologians have beards.
Yeah. Jesus had a beard. Had a beard. You know, Socrates had a beard. Homer had a beard. Paul probably had a beard. You know, you want to be like these men. You want your husbands and your boyfriends to be like this. And men grow a beard.
Actually, Martin Luther didn't have a beard. John Calvin did.
He didn't.
Boom!
Yeah, here we go.
Undeniable.
Yeah, Martin Luther didn't because he went crazy. No. You know, people that don't have a beard are crazy.
You heard it here first.
He's not marketing to you guys. Get with the program.
But yeah, check it out. It's gonna come by, God willing, sometime in October, if not November. So please check it out. It's cool.
And on this episode, we're obviously put your links to your product when that becomes available.
Yeah.
You can check out his books, his eBay. And we'll add that to the descriptions and the links below. Well, I know you're thinking about something. Go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking about the conversation we're having.
Yeah, it's like it's.
But yeah, I would suggest you guys. There's a lot of good books out there that you could read. You could read about foreknowledge of God, or the 4 views of foreknowledge of God, which I think William and Craig is there. It's really interesting. It shows you different perspectives, the Calvinistic perspective, the Libertarian perspective, and some other perspectives that I never heard of. And then there's other books for the problem of evil, and there's some essays that people have about it.
You think evil is a problem?
A problem?
Yeah. Evil
like for God. Like for somebody to say, oh, if God was real, then evil wouldn't exist.
No, because it goes back to the transworld depravity that I mentioned before.
Right.
And in whatever world that God creates, which is freedom of the will, and the human will fail at least once.
Yeah.
And by him failing, it's evil.
So, what do you think are oppositions to belief in God?
Oppositions?
Like, what do you think are the main oppositions?
When it comes to Christianity, the difficult thing that we usually talk about is the Old Testament, where you have people dying, you have Noah's Ark, children dying,
Eating babies.
and babies being eaten.
But
it's not so problem of the history of it, but it's the problem that we have is when God commands it. That's our most difficult discussion that we have. Everything else, I think, we're pretty.
So when God commanded them to do that, was it good? That
No.
they did it?
No. Okay. So consider. So when God told King Saul in 1 Samuel, to kill, to destroy everything, even the beast. I think it was the Amalekites.
Yeah.
The Amalekites. He told him to do that. He didn't. And the ending of 1 Samuel and the first chapter, I believe, of 2 Samuel, you see that Saul died, and the person went to David, the person that killed David, or the people that killed David. That killed Saul. Sorry, not David. The people that killed Saul went to David and said, "Look, I killed Saul for you." And David is like, "What? You killed Saul for me? How do you do it? Who are you?" And the guy said, "I am an Amalekite." God told Saul to kill all the Amalekites. He didn't.
Yeah.
Then an
Revenge.
Amalekite killed him.
There's a movie there somewhere. That story.
That's the
There's a
movie.
movie.
But it is God's providence, Once again, God knows best,
Yeah.
and I can't remove that from him, If he did it, Saul would still be alive, and it would have been a different future. I don't know how that would be. Who knows? But David ended up got angry and he killed the Amalekite because.
So let's just talk about crazy stuff, just to end it off here in the Bible, right? Where are the Nephilims? Where are Where are the Nephilim?
Every discussion I have of theology always falls back.
Where are they right now?
And all these things, the Leviathans and all these things.
Where's their YouTube channel? Where can we find them?
Like a heaven.
You know what's crazy though? David and Goliath's brothers were described as having, one of them had 6 fingers.
Yeah.
One was Cyclops.
Yeah. Well, it said that the sons of I forgot the name. The sons of this, which was Goliath, and Goliath was part of it, and this other one.
He had like
was part
4
of it.
brothers.
He had 6 fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. It's been a while, but I think they were descendants from the Nephilim.
Yeah. So there's some theories.
Why didn't they die in the flood?
They were too big.
I thought everything.
That discussion is
Obviously
we
Bigfoot survived.
We don't have enough. I think knowledge of that. You could have different theories. I heard a crazy theory that says that they were the Greek gods.
Yeah.
And they said they said that the reason why Homer and all of them wrote that book because they were actual mighty men.
Yeah.
And these mighty men, they called gods, and these mighty men were the giants.
Yeah. I see. Okay. So
I don't hold to that view. Very interesting, but I don't think that's the case.
So the way I see it, I mean, just be my thought. I don't really believe in this. I just always assume this to be true. Before the flood, all those religions with these different gods with 100 arms or whatever, those were the Nephilims that were in these areas. And they worshipped them like they were gods, and that's one of the reasons why God had to.
Well, the other question
Greenhouse.
the question is, was the flood global or local?
I think it's a good question. If it's local, then there's a possibility that others could survive. Right?
If the Earth is flat, it would be the whole Earth, right?
Yeah, we have mountains. Yeah. But if it was global, then the possibility that something else could survive outside of the ark is almost nothing, right?
Yeah, I think it was. I think personally it was local. Personally, I think it's local. Yeah. because they didn't know what was beyond their land.
And that's why in the Bible later on, where it says that the Caesar, I think it was that did it, that he took a census of the whole world. It's not the whole world, obviously, or all men or something like that says. Obviously, they don't mean all men. They don't mean the whole world. They just mean what they know.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I
in the same way, I say that when God says He wants all men to be saved, He's just talking about the few, right? Not the whole, right?
We all know where He stands on this.
No, is in that case, when for God to love the world that He for God to love the world that whoever the chosen, whoever believeth in Him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Whoever is all X. In philosophy, we say all X. That means all. Whoever is all X.
Yeah, whoever, I believe that. Yeah.
It is not some X.
Yeah, but only the chosen believe. Right?
Yeah, we go back to the Calvinist heart.
Whoever believes.
I mean, okay, but realistically, the ones that don't believe, obviously, they're not the ones that.
Yeah, but whoever believes.
Then why
and if you
have,
but if you believe, you go to heaven.
So then why have the gospel and why preach it and why to all the nations?
That's the way He does it. He says through the word of God, you should be saved.
But only the ones that are
hearing.
Those
are the ones that it takes effect.
Oh, wait, so people that never heard the Gospels are not saved?
No, they're not saved. No.
Oh, they never heard. Well, sorry, there's a teenager in India. Yeah, poor.
Yeah. Some tribe in Africa.
A tribe in Africa, and they never heard the Gospels.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't go to
I'm not saying that they can't. I'm just saying that the salvation route with Jesus and all that, it's not there. It's not going to work. Is it possible that God can give them dreams and show them who Jesus is? Mm-hmm. I think that's 100% possible. I actually heard a story. There was a preacher that came to some church. I can't remember. It was an Asian guy. And he was saying that, oh no, he was a Muslim dude. And he was saying that in his country, he was having dreams and he didn't know English. He only knew Arabic. And in the dreams, he kept hearing the word gospel. And he didn't know what that was because he didn't speak English. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't until he looked it up on the computer where he found out what the gospel was. And then he looked into it. He became a Christian. He moved to the States, and now he preaches or whatever.
Well, it's possible I could do that, but there's a verse, and I don't want to take out of context. But what I think it means, what I think it means is that I don't know if it's Romans. It's one of those it's one of Paul's letters, and he mentions that we are condemned by the law, and can't remember, but it's implying that there are those that don't know of the law, they will be justified according to what they know. So if that's the case, if they are moral, if they don't know the gospel, but they follow morality and they follow the conscience, not consciousness, then perhaps they can be saved. But also, if I'm taking that verse out of context, then it could also be that God could just send them dreams, and He could do something. Yeah, He can. He's God. Why can't He?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like He could. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
What you got for us?
I'm trying to find the verse. If I could connect to this thing, it's Romans 3:20. If I'm right. Let's type it in here.
3:20, where the one I'm talking about.
I think so.
Yeah. But yeah, he could do so. There are things that we don't know. We are so limited with perspective.
I'm going to show you your favorite Bible, NIV. It goes, therefore no one would be declared righteous in God's sight by the works of the law. Rather, through the law, we become conscious of our sin. Yeah. Oh, but that's like the beginning of the gospel.
Yeah,
right?
Can you put the entire chapter 3? I mean,
we only pluck verses here. We don't do chapters.
We're pluckers.
That's a horrible thing to do.
That's a horrible thing to do.
All right. Where do you want to start from?
All right,
we're going to read the whole Bible, starting with Romans 3.
Wow, we're going to lose a few people here.
All right, righteousness. You should go up.
Okay, let's read the whole thing.
Where are you going to start from?
Let's read the whole thing.
All right. In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth.
So, while they're looking for...
No, it's right here. No, but no one is righteous, right? What shall we conclude then? Do we have any advantage? Not at all. For we have already made the charge that the Jews and the Gentiles alike are all under the power of sin, as it is written. There is no one righteous, not even one. There is no one who understands. There is no one who seeks God. All have turned. I'm sorry, he's talking about Calvinism here. they have together become worthless. There is no one.
He's saying all though.
Yeah.
Plural.
There is no one who does good, not even one. This is original sin. Is I using the right term for that?
You could go to the original.
You
Okay.
could.
Theory, yeah.
Their throats are open graves. Their tongue practice deceit. The poison of vipers is in their lips. Their mouths are full of curses and bitterness. Their feet are swift and shed blood. Ruin and misery mark their ways, and the way of peace they do not know. There is no fear of God before their eyes. So these people have no care, right? Now we know that whoever the law... Wait, am I reading this right? Whatever the law says, it says that those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be silent, and the whole world held accountable to God. Therefore, no one will be declared righteous in the sight by the works of the law. Rather, through the law, become conscious of their sin. So what he's saying is that the law is like a mirror, right? So we can see our own sin. Am I going to read all this too?
No. I think go ahead, keep using that
Wait, hold on,
analogy of the mirror.
Okay, so let me just skip a verse or two and just read from here. The righteousness is given through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe. There is no difference between Jew and Gentile, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And all are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Jesus Christ. By God's... I lost my space. God presented Jesus as a sacrifice of atonement. Hey, that just passed. Through the shedding of his blood to be received by faith. He did this to demonstrate his righteousness because in his forbearance he had let the sin committed beforehand unpunished. Oh, that's good. That's a good question we got going on there. And he did it to demonstrate his righteousness at the present time, so as to be just, and the one who justifies those who have faith in Jesus. So I think after reading it, I'm like, okay, I get it now. So yeah, so I mean that's the gospel right there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's the heart of the gospel.
So the mirror allows us to see the sin in us, the imperfection in us.
Yeah.
The law.
The law, right? The mirror being the law, and Jesus is the atonement that allows us.
Yeah. So if you have something, like if you look in the mirror, and you
and
see
that
like
is
something,
to all, right? Because it started with all, Jew and Gentile alike.
Yeah. So that at that point, he's opening up the gospel to everybody.
There we go.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, yeah, right. He's opening the gospel. So instead of his chosen people,
full of contradictions,
to only hear it, everybody gets it. Yeah.
You all get to hear it.
Yeah, everybody.
But why not the chosen?
He had the chosen. He still has
The
the
chosen is still there.
No, the chosen is still there.
The children. That's the crazy part. That the chosen are still there. Yet we have the opportunity, all Gentile and Jew alike.
That's what I'm saying. That the deal is made for everybody to hear it. That's the way I see it. All's gonna hear it.
That's why I say
because that's only what he's allowed. When he is gonna end the world is when all hear it. That's why he's like, yo, everybody had a chance. Nobody has an excuse.
There's no excuse, and that's why I say that it has to be both.
But it also means that it is offered.
Yeah.
And if it's offered, then it's the grace that is offered. And not all chose the grace, therefore you can resist it.
But I don't know. Just the way I see it, if I'm talking to, is the offer heard by you, but directed towards him?
It says here all.
What I'm saying though, what if we had it? What if I say I'm going to offer you, whoever wants to give me the laptop, I'll give him $1 million. But he's the only one that has a laptop.
But why does he have a laptop?
Because he has money.
But why does he have the money? Why does he have that? And
in God's forbearance, he gave him a good job to buy a laptop. So for this moment right now,
again, it's both. God already written the canvas and the end picture, and we're writing it in the process.
Yeah,
and that's the mind blowing thing. And in order for the God I serve to be God, it has to be both. That's
we're
how
not
powerful.
talking about Zeus though. We're talking about the God you serve, or the one we're talking about?
Hercules.
But yeah, his will needs to be met. and yet we still have freedom of the will. So yeah.
So it's funny how you avoided the Nephilim question. I like the way you
He wants to take it back.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know much about the Nephilim.
Yo, check this out. Just something crazy, right? There was an Egyptian archaeologist. This is years ago, and he just happened to be a Christian. This is when they first discovered the inside temples within the pyramids. There's a room, a chamber within the pyramids that's called the King's Chamber. There's no tomb in there. There's never been a tomb in there, right? But it's unusual because the room has nothing written on the walls, and the only thing inside this room is a box, right? The box happens to be empty for whatever reason. There's nothing written in it, just completely blank, nothing, right? And everybody assumed, they were going to bury a king there, but something happened, whatever, right? They measured the room out, to write reports, whatever. And the Christian guy, as he's reading the report, whatever, the measurements, he's like, man, these numbers look familiar. I just don't know from where. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until later on where he starts reading about the Ark of the Covenant, where he starts to realize those are the same dimensions.
Oh.
The exact same dimensions, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I'm just throwing things in the air right now. Mm-hmm. There's also, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Book of Enoch.
I've heard of some of it. They mentioned giants there.
Yeah. So the Book of Enoch mentions the fact that God told Enoch to build, he called it the Pillar of Enoch, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. And he goes, take your story everything that you see, going to heaven, seeing this, seeing that, write it down, and I want you to put it there and put it for safekeeping, right? Now, call me crazy. If there was a global flood, right? Mm-hmm. One of the structures that would stay without being destroyed would be a pyramid, right? Okay. Also, what is that tiger that they have in front of the pyramid? What is that thing called? The Sphinx, right? You know the Sphinx is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Archaeologists have come forth and said the Sphinx has markings of water being eroding it, but how could that be if it's in the desert, right? So I'm just throwing. Also, the pyramid was covered in something else. Mm-hmm. It was covered in almost like when they do stucco on the house, that they throw like a layer of something on it. The pyramid used to have that, and it's been washed away. Mm. So, and then also, guess who came from Egypt? Moses. I wonder if Moses went in there, figured out. God is like, go in the pyramid. I'm going to tell you these stories. This is what the gospel. Because actually, the Book of Enoch actually talks about. It kind of hints towards Jesus. Like, they kind of, I'm going to send a savior and all that stuff,
Oh, first off.
I'm throwing, this is like conspiracy theory, Christianity route. This is part 2 of the last episode.
Well, first, for real. Enoch is a pseudeographia. What that means is that it uses a name and it's not them. Yeah. And Enoch died way before. So, there's that. And then, it is not canon. It's not part of the Bible. It's I don't remember. It's written in BC. I think it is.
Enoch.
The Book of Enoch. I'm not sure if it's the if we could Google it. When is it written?
Yeah.
I think it's like the first, second. I could be totally off.
BC.
Yeah.
What was that you want with
the Book of Enoch? When was it?
I should help you.
Yeah, the Book of Enoch. But yeah, the Book of Enoch talks a whole bunch of stuff, and the thing is that there's a lot of things that could happen. Why does a pyramid have water? There could be a lot of things why it has water. It can not only be one thing that's possible, and that's the answer. Now the whole Ark of the Covenant, that's very interesting.
That's another really deep conversation to talk about.
I think if we were to ever find the Ark of the Covenant, that would be a great archaeological discovery, and probably the greatest.
It's in Ethiopia.
It's in Ethiopia. But yeah, we don't know. It could be that. We just don't know.
There was also rumors. I mean, I don't even know where they got this from. Where the hill of Golgotha, the skull hill, whatever, where Jesus was crucified on. That apparently that there was a chamber. What is this? What the heck?
So when was Book of Enoch made?
Right there, boom. So that the mountain that Jesus was crucified on, Golgotha. Okay.
Yeah.
Apparently, the rumor has it that there was a chamber under that when Jesus was crucified, the blood went through.
And
dripped right on top of where they would do the sacrifices.
Yeah.
With the blood, of the lamb.
I heard of that one before. That's a very nice theory because it's like,
that's
you
pretty.
know, it's he fulfilled it anyways, you know.
I mean, it's possible.
So it's second century, second century BC.
Yeah, but they're trying to go against Jesus, so they're gonna lie. This is Wikipedia. We can edit this right now.
1 to 99.
Edit it right now. Change it, please. Put it to the right time.
Today.
Well, technically it's third century because it's 300. If it was 299, it would have been second. Yeah, so it's third century.
But also, there's things that God could have done as the Bible was written. This is just possibility. It's possible that God could have directed other people to do things that are not written in the Bible. Like, it's totally possible that he could have said to these people 1,000 years, 100, whatever, years before the crucifixion, put this in there, bury it with rocks, and leave it there for, forever, die, whatever.
Right.
And then 100 years after Jesus died, come back, empty out that thing, bring it to wherever. You know what I'm saying? And keep it there.
Well, and if you read Kings, I think, First and Second Kings, it mentions some books.
It also mentions golden hemorrhoids.
Well, I don't know. But it mentions books and, this you could find this record in the book of this.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't have those books. And, we have First and Second Kings, So, yeah, there's some books. And then Jude, the Gospel of Jude, I think it mentions, what was it? It mentions something about the Book of Enoch.
It does mention
right?
It goes as it is written in the Book of Enoch, blah, blah, blah.
But in the Jude case, it's because it was popular.
But also Paul quotes philosophers.
Oh yeah. And when he went to Athens.
Yeah, and then when he went to Mars Hill, this unknown god.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I meant. Mars Hill. He said your scripture says that we are offsprings of God. Yeah, but yeah, just because it mentions these things doesn't mean it's canon. Yeah. It could just mean he wanted to use it as political discussion. Like right now, we could use a phrase. Oh, see, Black Lives Matter. Blah blah blah, and because Jesus loves everyone, and Jesus is the one that gives life. Like, just because you mention Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that whatever they do. Yeah.
So in your opinion, Black lives don't matter? That's what you're trying to say? That's what
Damn. You are not going to make a single sound.
So now, another thing I'm saying...
of course they matter.
They too.
So just because it says it doesn't mean that's necessarily we have to believe it.
Doesn't mean that the book itself is Enoch.
Yeah. So when they say all men will be, doesn't necessarily mean all. It could also mean the chosen.
No, I'm not.
Always bringing it back. Got to be careful with this one. Got to be careful with this.
I'm not saying that the scriptures and the canon are false. I'm saying that.
But let me just ask you, what do you, if you think this? Could it be canon? We just don't have it in the Bible, and there's no purpose for it. So God's like, yeah, this is actually what happened, but there's no reason for you to even look at that. That's a totally different set of experiences, right?
I don't think so. Better yet, let's make another question, right? If we was to find, because there's other epistles that Paul wrote that we didn't find, if we were to discover those epistles, would we put it as canon?
I wouldn't.
I think it comes back to the point of the Bible tells us why. It doesn't explain how. Yeah. And there could be other things, and it's not relative. This is why. And that's what we need to focus on.
Yeah.
But I believe it can.
The thing is that the thing is that then you could consider everything, and that's very dangerous. You
dangerous.
Consider the Gnostic Gospels and the Kabbalah and all these things. No, God is a God of order.
I'll tell you one thing. If they do discover that, I almost can guarantee you that the Catholic Church is going to have another council to figure out what books they're going to add now to the Bible. Yeah,
probably. But, I mean, it changes everything if it's Paul's epistle. Because it's Paul.
If we could prove that it's Paul somehow.
Oh, yeah.
That was written around the same time or whatever.
Yeah.
Then
So that makes it different. And, yeah, there was a lot of councils. Council of Nicaea. There was Martin Luther also did a council to make sure that everything. So we removed the Apocryphas.
There's a video series called The Elephant Room. You ever heard of that?
I know the.
Oh yeah.
No.
It's called the Elephant Room.
I don't know why I'm
They
doing all the
sort
typing.
of did something where they grabbed a bunch of pastors and theologians and whatever philosophers, and they put them in a room, and they kind of hashed out some of these issues to figure out all different backgrounds, some Calvinists, some Arminians, some this, some that. I think T.D. Jakes was in it as well. Like they were just trying to figure out, like, okay, what do we believe as Christians?
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily come down to like an official thing, but they just wanted to have a discussion for people to hear it. You know.
Well, in the same sense, nowadays when there's a discussion about homosexuals and all those problems, we kind of have to say, oh, this is what we believe, and kind of like not adjust, but kind of like say that, look, every sin is the same, and all these things. Like the discussion had to be made,
Right.
It had to be, and that throughout church history, there's different discussions.
Throughout different points in time.
Different points in time, and
that was relevant.
the Council of Nicaea was about the Gnostic Gospels. What's canon, what's not canon.
Humanity was asking the question, and it needed to be addressed.
Well, whatever the problem was during the society, then it was became
properly addressed.
Yeah, it was addressed, and that happened throughout the entire church history. The problem of
is it happening now?
Yeah, like I said, discussion about homosexuality, making it more, because there's a lot of traditionalists out there, especially Hispanics that are Pentecostals. They will say things like, "Oh no, they're all burning in hell," and blah blah blah, and that come on, like, that's like the bad route to go.
Like homosexuals, you see?
Yeah, like that.
Making that argument.
And the thing is that actually everyone, including myself, deserves to go to hell.
Well, they're just the ones that are throwing the first stone, right? That's what they're doing in the corners. They're throwing the first stone.
So in the Bible, Jesus said, "He who has not sinned, cast the first stone," and no one could cast a stone because everyone has sinned, and everyone deserves to go to hell. So, because we all sinned. But I sinned, and let's just say homosexuality is not a sin. I could still say they lied. I could still say they stole. I could still say something else that could accuse that they're sinned. So
I think that's a major issue though. That's a turnoff towards Christianity. Is that homosexuals, gays go to hell, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Fags burn in hell. You like put the signs out.
Yeah.
That's a major turnoff.
Yeah, and the answer to that is that we all deserve to go to hell, and we all have sinned. And once again, if I could always accuse you of a sin. Yeah. And since God is perfect, he wants to wash all our sins away because.
But when individuals use that tactic, I refer to that phrase. They're the ones that are throwing the first stone. They're the ones throwing the first stone. I mentioned that phrase because how are you without sin? Yeah. To stand there, and say what you're saying. And
then also the issue is scare tactic is not a salvation. It's not. You know what I'm saying? It's not. That's not the way God does it. God does it through love. Yeah.
Once again, the whole hell topic and heaven topic. If you want to go to heaven because you're scared of hell, then I wouldn't consider you a Christian. I would say you want to go to heaven for the wrong reason.
Yeah. So your name's not going to be in the book. St. Peter's going to be like, yeah, I'm sorry.
So to the audience, bringing it back to you guys, because we could obviously go on forever. But we'd love to hear your thoughts, where you stand. To the atheists, it's not a challenge; it's a welcome to have a discussion and bring out more ideas. I think that we should definitely do a follow up. Obviously, when the product comes out, we'd love to show our audience the product. If you're willing, we'd love to try the product out and test it out ourselves, give it our reviews.
Because real men have beard.
So that's basically where
we're... Is that the tagline?
It should be like a commercial. Yeah. Right? Real men have beard.
Real men have beard. So, I want to thank you again.
It's copyrighted.
You got it already?
He's just saying that so nobody else does it.
Exactly. So again, I want to thank you for being on the show. We're definitely going to be doing a follow-up when the product comes up. We'll have the links to his books, and more about him. Please leave us your comments, your reviews. Noel, you got anything for them?
Just take a good listen to this podcast again because it's very heavy.
And you could always choose to listen to the podcast. Meaning you have freedom to do so.
I couldn't end it any better myself. Guys, be safe out there. Peace.